Today I'm here with Michaela Metzler Anderson, founder of North Design Co., and we are going to talk all about conversion-based website design, which is such an interesting topic. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, I would love to just start with hearing a little background on how you got to where you are with web design and branding.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a unique story. I took my first computer graphics class in high school, and the very first day I was like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Oh my
Most
gosh, wow.
most people don't know that early.
Yeah.
And so from there, I just took it and ran with it. I was a graphic design major in college. And then afterwards, I worked in the largest marketing department of a real estate company in
Mhm.
Wyoming. I was working there part time and then just doing client work part time, just like freelancing. Then I was getting so many clients that I decided this makes sense to create my business and just take it full time. So I did that in 2020. I started just with logos and branding, and then so many people were asking me, do you do websites? Do you do
Mhm.
websites? And so I decided, it makes sense. They kind of go hand in hand, branding and the
Mhm.
websites. And so I just started diving into courses. And I wouldn't really say I'm self-taught because I think that education around website design and strategy and all of that is really important. And so
Mhm.
I've taken a ton of courses. I started with WordPress, which I hated and almost gave up
That's a hard one to start on.
altogether. It
Gosh.
was. And then when I found Showit, I just absolutely fell in love. It was like I was working in one of my design programs. I could make it look and feel however I wanted. And so I felt like it really helped clients, showcase their branding and their unique personality and be
Mhm.
able to display all of that and help them get clients that way. I actually became a Show It design partner last year in 2024. Just continued working with it, and now here we are.
I worked on all the different platforms, and Showit is definitely, it might be my favorite. The
Yeah,
capabilities, but it can also be overwhelming, so it's good to have people like you that are experts in it.
oh, definitely. Yeah, when I do a custom website, I start from a completely blank
Yeah.
screen. That is not something I would ever recommend for someone trying
No.
to DIY their website, but there are so many great templates out there and template shops and places to start if you want to DIY. There's
Hmm.
also so many great designers available to help clients get the website of their dreams and attract their
Hmm.
dream clients.
And really like what you just said there of like a website attracting dream clients and being able to convert dream clients, like that is so crucial for a website to be able to like actually work for our businesses and not just be this like beautifully designed pretty place, that we just have all our work and our stuff. Let's dive into that conversation because you've been in this industry for a while and you have a lot of great experience on different platforms with websites branding. I'm curious, what are those key elements to make sure that a website is actually converting?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the things that websites these days, it's not just enough to have a website. That might have been a thing several years ago that just being online set you apart, but that's no longer the case. So now it's super important to have great user experience, whether they're looking on desktop or mobile, which mobile is definitely taking the front runner these
Yeah.
days. So having that good user experience and making sure that people are able to access your website easily. You have
Mhm.
clear navigation. They're able to find what they're looking for. And then, along with that, having compelling copywriting. So, you can't just have a site that just has pretty pictures and no words. You won't be able
Mhm.
to connect with them, and have showcase your expertise and valuable solution to their problems. And then once you have that, then you have to have call to actions. I feel like that is one of the biggest things that people miss on a website is having those call to actions and that strategy of guiding
Mhm.
them from one page to another and really having that strategy on the site, making
Mhm.
sure that those are clear and that they're placed multiple places throughout the page. And then
Mhm.
also showcasing your work. especially as a service-based business owner, whether that's with a portfolio or your services or testimonials from happy clients. So that it used to be a thing to have like a testimonials page where you
Mhm.
just had this big list of reviews all on one page, but now we really try and sprinkle them throughout the site, making sure
Mhm.
there's some on the homepage, on the services page, like one specific to each project that you have in your
Mhm.
portfolio.
Those are really valuable tips. I think especially like making sure that a website is really clear, but also being really strategic with calls to actions and sprinkling those social, social proof all over your website, I think is so, so important. Those are really great tips. When it comes to like photographers or wedding vendors or service providers, how would you recommend implementing those effectively? Do you sit down and really try to strategize, like, what is the goal for each page? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think definitely creating an overall strategy for your website. So you have to have an end goal in mind. So whether that is you want them to reach out to you via a form on your contact page,
Mhm.
or maybe if you're a service provider and you have online booking, you want to direct them to that booking page so that they can book automatically. Or maybe your goal is to get them on an email list. So really having that overall strategy in place first will help you make decisions on where to place things on your site. And then you can break it down by section and really guide them from the home page to the about page so they can learn more about you. And then from
Mhm.
there to your services page and making sure that flow is really easy to navigate. And then also just, not having too much information. You don't want it overcrowded. You want it easy to read. People are not going
Mhm.
to read long, long paragraphs of text. It's
So
just,
true.
that's not what they're there for. So keeping it clear, concise, having like really good headings, and then just consistent fonts and branding. You don't want, especially like if you are driving traffic from social media, if you have like a set color palette on social media and then you have completely different color and fonts and stuff on your website, there's going to be a disconnect.
Yeah.
So making sure that that's all consistent is really going to be important.
I really like what you said, especially in the beginning of like before even starting the design or planning out the design, making sure to sit down and have that goal and strategy in mind. For a lot of creatives, I think that's maybe not a thought that they typically have. It's more about how to showcase their work properly and how to make it look really pretty. I think you can do both. And I think that's what you're saying is like it should be both a way to make your business look amazing and be an online digital storefront and can reach those goals. So I really love that. So, what are, from your experience, some of the most common mistakes that you see business owners make on their websites? And what are your recommendations on how people can try to avoid them to improve their conversion rate?
Yeah, so one of them is definitely going to be the inconsistent fonts. I see that
Mm,
all the time. So having either if you do a DIY brand or you work with a designer, having that font and that hierarchy set so you have all the
mm,
same headings and all the same subheadings and all the same paragraph text and trying to be consistent even with the colors of those so that people kind of get that memorable look and start to like really connect with your brand.
mm,
And then also just not having the call to actions on your website or kind of hiding them in a place like the very bottom of the page.
mm.
You don't want to do that. You want those to be accessible everywhere that somebody
Yeah.
looks. And then just again not having a strategy, just like wanting to make a really pretty website that
Hmm.
doesn't really guide the viewer anywhere. And then the last thing would be just making sure that you have your images optimized, especially if you're a
Hmm.
photographer, not having gigantic images that make your load time really slow because
Hmm.
nobody wants to sit and wait for a website to load for
Yeah.
minutes at a time.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I mean, it's so interesting because I think like because I come from that SEO lens and all of these things that you're mentioning are so important for SEO. User experience matters so much, and that is something that I see a lot too is when people come to me, sometimes I'll go through their website, it'll either take a super long time to load, and so I know like okay, if there's a high bounce rate, this is probably why. But also I think those The font issue is such a big thing. Like, if a human is going to a site and there's like, it's just a little bit chaotic, then I feel like we feel a little chaotic too. And then, everything is just a little bit more complicated and chaotic, and we might not want to stay on the website. So I think that is really important, like integrating branding in there and consistency and like clear and effective user experience, both on, I think, the conversion side and also for SEO. Because if we have a high bounce rate and people are leaving our sites, then I mean, that's a really big indicator that our website is not relevant or trustworthy or something people want to see. And Google takes that into account. So I think for multiple reasons, all of those things you mentioned are so, so important. So, what are your recommendations on how creative professionals can speak directly to their ideal clients and encourage them to actually take the next step and take action on their sites?
Yeah, so I think that branding again plays a huge role
Hmm.
in that. It's really, like the personality and the soul of your website. It's what is
Hmm.
going to be attracting people to you. Also, just what I do with my clients is I start with a branding questionnaire. So it's not just about the visuals, it's really diving deep into the strategy behind the business. Who are you trying to attract? Who do you like working with? With a lot of newer businesses, people say everyone, which
Right.
it's not to say that you can't work with everyone,
Mm.
but if you are trying to attract a very specific target audience, then you're more likely to attract those people and people
Hmm.
that fall outside of it that want to be in that target
Yeah.
audience. So you're really figuring out who you're talking to and who you're attracting with that, and then pulling the visuals from that. With weddings and photographers, making sure that those visuals are consistent. So if you're kind of like a dark and moody photographer, having visuals that align with that and
Hmm.
not having like a disconnect of,
Yeah.
well, your photos are dark and moody and then your website is like bright and airy or, different things like that. So just making sure that all of that really aligns. I have my clients, they do the questionnaire first to kind of dive deep
Hmm.
into their business. And then I have them create a Pinterest board, the kind of like a mood board
Hmm.
of the visuals. And I don't ever ask for like pre-made logos or pre-made color palettes. It's really like, what is your personality? What does your house look like? If you had a storefront, what does that
Hmm.
look like? And
I love
really
that.
just getting the like mood and the vibe of the business,
Hmm.
so that we can capture that with the visuals. And
Yeah.
the visuals are really what, attract people based on emotions, and they make you memorable. You don't want to look the same as everybody else that did a pre-made Canva logo. You want to be
Yeah.
unique. Every business is unique, and so touching on those unique points is really important.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like everyone's trying to stand out now. There's so many businesses out there, especially online, and so everyone's like trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to be different? What can I do to stand out? And I think what you said there of making sure to like really understand your style, your brand is so important, especially because websites are that digital storefront, like an extension of us and our businesses. And I've had this conversation so many times with web designers, but especially I feel like with AI generated websites and all the tools that we have online, Canva, like there's so many tools to like DIY everything. I feel like it's easy to get caught up in like, a templated website or, not infusing our personalities in there because we use a different tool. So being more of ourselves and letting our personalities come in and our styles, I think, it's the thing that makes us unique. And the emotional side too, with like, everybody uses AI now. And so, I mean, AI doesn't express emotion. So I think that is one way that we can definitely stand out. So you mentioned something in there about that brand message of who are you serving? How are you serving them? How would you recommend like business owners integrate that in their websites, especially if they're maybe doing it themselves?
Yeah, so I mean, figuring that out would be the first step, figuring
Hmm.
out who your target audience is, and then really focusing on, even if you're going to DIY your website or use a template, really writing your copy first, figuring out who you're
Hmm.
talking to, what your value propositions are, is going to be really important before you dive into the pretty aspect of the
Yeah.
designing. And so I actually provide my clients with if they want to do the copywriting themselves, I provide them with a DIY copywriting template. It's a Google Doc that I created that really walks them through writing the copy for their website. So a lot of business owners don't know how to write about their
Hmm.
business.
Hmm.
They know their business best, but they don't really know what to write about it to attract their ideal client or customers on their website, how to connect with them emotionally. And so that's where my copywriting template really comes into place for those that
Hmm.
want to DIY their copy, to really help them. It has prompts and it has different sections of, these are the basic things that a high converting website needs to have. And then it allows them to think a little bit more strategically about their
Hmm.
business and be able to write to attract those people.
I love that. That is honestly so helpful. I feel like, again, I work with a lot of creatives, and as a creative myself, as a photographer, it's hard to think about those things. Like, those just aren't things that we think about as artists oftentimes. I mean, I'm not saying everybody, but I think often we're so focused on the people and the art that we're creating that it's really hard to learn how to communicate why we're so valuable or how we're solving a problem for conversion's sake. So that's a really, really helpful guide. Speaking of templates and DIYing websites, I know you're launching a template shop, so I would love to spend some time talking about what's coming for you.
Yes, so I am actually 7 months pregnant at the moment, and I am getting ready to launch a template shop. They will be Show It
Mhm.
website templates. I actually have the templates already in the Show It marketplace, but I'm getting ready to launch them on my own website.
Okay.
That way that people can, since I will be unavailable, people can buy the website templates and be able to customize and DIY the sites
Mhm.
themselves. And so I've got three templates to start with, and they are all focused on service-based businesses. So I've got one that's called the Serene template. It's geared towards a yoga studio with like the
Okay.
branding right now,
Yeah.
but I have customized that template for a law firm. It's really, the templates are really diverse and they can be
Mhm.
used for any service-based business. I've got one that I've created for a copywriter and another one for an interior designer. But like I said, they're all super diverse. So it's really, when you're picking a template, about the structure of the site that you like,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
necessarily who it's designed for in the
Mhm.
template. But with those templates, they come with that DIY copywriting template that I was talking about.
Amazing.
And they're also set up for SEO. So I
Nice.
have done I have done a ton of courses and stuff this last year to make sure that I am up on my game with SEO and that the headings
Mhm.
are correct and that they're also set up for conversion. And so someone can plug and play with this template and be able to have a really strategic and well-performing website for their business without having to hire a designer. I do
Amazing.
still offer template customization for the people that just flat out don't have the time or
Yeah.
capacity, which is okay too. But if you're just starting out, templates are a really great place to
Hmm.
start and be able to get you a strategic online presence without breaking the bank when you don't really even know where your business is going to go quite yet.
Totally. And I love that, like, you have set it all up for the website to start working for the business. I mean, from the copy, the conversions, and also the SEO. So that's an amazing resource. I will be linking that in the description and in the show notes so you can check out her shop. And then you also have a free website checklist, right? Can we hear more about that?
Yes. So basically, everything that we talked about today is in that checklist. All the things that you need for a website to, convert your browsers into bookings or into buyers.
Hmm.
So just going through all of those elements that we talked about.
Mhm.
That's just going to be a free download on my website as a resource to anyone that's looking to level up their website and just make sure that they are hitting all of those points.
Yes, that is perfect. So yeah, everything we talked about, it'll be so nice to have it in like a written checklist form. So go and download that website checklist. I'll link that as well in the description and the show notes. And then lastly, for those who would like to connect with you more after this, what is the best way to get in touch with you or connect with you online?
So you can find me over on Instagram at North Design Co. I am not super active on there, but that's where you can find me, or on my website, northdesignco.com. I've got tons of resources on there. I have a whole resources page for business owners with tools, fonts that I recommend, legal resources for websites,
Hmm.
stock photography or local photographers. So that's
Nice.
another great resource too. And then I've got blog posts that kind of help with things that clients are working through on their site and learning a little bit more about the Show It platform and things like that.
Perfect. That is all so high value. I love it. Well, Michaela, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I learned a lot and that was so much fun. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode, and I will see you in the next one.